Okay, so I don't have any other monetizable skills. The one thing that is an impressive applause warrant, like getting thing, is not monetizable. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to keep telling jokes and stories about stuff that nobody wants to talk about. And I don't want to. That's a part of burnout that I don't think came out today. Is it? No. Camera off. Right? Some of us are not new to working at home. You've been doing this all along. You're like, don't tell them my secrets. But you're like, oh, sorry, the phone's disconnecting. Bad cell service. What episode was I on? Right? Like, we didn't know this. We're learning, right? I didn't want to do anything else, and I didn't want to do the thing that I could do. How do you solve that burnout? So the way that my life works, I live in a little bitty teeny tiny town in California. So I still had like 4 or 5 more stops when I had this big revelation that I don't want to anymore. I still had like 4 cities to go to in the same suitcase, right? So I think this is basically what those 4 things look like. Right? That was those 4 visits. I wanted to quit, but I had contracts and bills and no plan for growth. So I started listening to my audience members, asking the same damn questions that they asked all the time, but I was listening differently because I was listening through, no, I mean, please repeat that, right? And as I was listening, what I realized was they were sharing with me conversations that mattered to them that they weren't having. They were sharing with me why it mattered. They were sharing with me why they couldn't do it, but they were sharing with me that they really couldn't just let it go. Because it mattered, but they didn't know how, and they didn't know why, and there it is. It's like a zombie conversation. So I started paying attention because I can't tell them, right? But I'm like, room service, shut up, roll it out. What are you asking me? Let's go. That was a very large part of where I was at the moment. When I started listening to them, I started hearing a pattern that was really an excuse because they didn't feel like they knew exactly what to say. They didn't know how to be perfect and like nail the conversation and win it. That one usually comes with replaying a transcript. Perhaps this occurs in the shower. It's not just me. Brian Baxter broke up with me in 8th grade. I didn't know we were dating. We rode bikes together. I mean, I guess that's a commitment. What? I have replayed for 8th grade was a minute ago. I have replayed that moment in my head because it was a crucible moment in my life. I think it was the first time I had ever actually felt humiliated because I didn't know we were dating, let alone we are now no longer dating. And in 8th grade science class, that's a lot, right? I had just discovered blue eyeshadow and had a spiral perm and a 24-hour headgear. I was so preoccupied, I missed having a boyfriend. It was mortifying. So I'm old and have replayed that conversation so many times until I win the conversation. Like Brian Baxter's, lines never change. Don't like cancel culture him or whatever. He was also in 8th grade, right? Like grace. I have changed what I say. I change how I stand. I change how I like sarcasmo back at him. But I changed that I start the conversation knowing that we were dating. That's a big switch, right? So I do that because it was humiliating to me, and I want to fix that feeling in me. It has nothing to do with Brian, right? At all. It took me years to remember that dude's last name. And the only reason why, not only did we have matching bicycles, but we were both the gingers in school. You may not know this, but this is hair dye. I am not the only one in the room who uses hair dye. I just might be the only one who chose to look like a male betta fish. Why I think this is important is that what cured my burnout is that I realized that there is something in common between where I was standing in that exact moment and everything I deeply care about that I wasn't noticing change. And that is that conversations matter. And they are not winnable. This is not about perfection. Conversations that matter are about doing the best you can with what you already got some of the time. I will repeat that. That is a very low bar. Do the best you can. I mean, the best I could. Some of the time, meaning like not 24/7, because then you won't have any friends and no one will talk to you, with all of the experience and skills you already have. Do the best you can with what you got some of the time. That's it. You're welcome. I will leave now. If we did that, I would not have a job. What's more important is that because I know if we did do that, I'm no longer burnt out. When I realized that what was preventing people from having conversations that matter was because their life, much like my life, had prepared me, had allowed me to feel safe through my judgments and assumptions, and my judgments and assumptions that I learned by surviving my crucible moments is exactly why I have no idea how to deal with your junk. Because your junk was also taught to you out of survival. So what this really boils down to, hopefully by now you've picked somebody, is just, I want you to listen. We've had some conversations about your internal voices, intuition. I'm not a woo-woo person. Anyone shocked by that? So the heart voice that Karen talked about, right? I call it the voices in your head. Some of you, are you familiar with the voices in your head? Some of you are like, I don't know what she's talking about. I don't have any voices in my head. You didn't say that out loud. This voice up here, just listen to it when I say this. As you are sorting through the frustrating people, as you're sorting through the frustrating topics, okay? You've picked one or more. Some of you are unicorns and are like, no one. Now you're frustrating to me, so I'll just add you to the list. The person that you are frustrated by, their life has taught them that that is how to show up. Did you hear the voice in your head go, no, I don't like that? Their life taught them that this is how they're supposed to show up. Does that make them right? No. No. I am a trained expert. If you're a person that you pick, they're wrong. Do you feel better now? But their life taught them that that's how to be prepared and that's how to feel safe. That doesn't mean that it's right. And you and me, when there is a conversation on the line that really matters, I'm using my judgments and assumptions because my life has taught me that's what I need to do to feel safe and prepared. And then what usually happens is I come back here, all safe and prepared, and wait. Because they're going to come to me. They didn't come yet. Well, I'll just draft something. I can't save that on my computer. I'll move that to a thumb drive. They're not here yet. That's what happens. That is why I have job security and tell people that I'm a diversity educator, because what has happened is that our lives have taught us how to feel safe and prepared, and then we go back into our little turtle hole where we feel safe and prepared and wait for those that we are possibly questioning whether or not we are prepared for them or we can feel safe around them, that they are going to then come to my completely uninviting turtle hole, and until they show up there, it's their problem. Stop doing that. Don't do that anymore. Doesn't work. What ends up happening is you are constantly peeking out of your turtle hole trying to find out if they're coming yet. That is called setting yourself up for disappointment. What would happen if you stumble out of your little turtle hole? I have no idea why I'm calling this a turtle hole. I was on vacation in Montana. I saw 0 turtles. Maybe buffaloes live in a hole. I don't know. Anyway, if you came out of your little turtle hole because you want to have the conversation because it matters, your posture is going to be different. You're not waiting to receive their conversation anymore. Because it's not about winning it. It's not about being perfect. It's about having a conversation that you believe matters to you. And your bar isn't winning. It's to do the best you can with what you got some of the time. Literally, that is what when I say good enough now, that's it. I didn't say like awesomest, always, forever, gold medals all the time. I need a nap even thinking about that. But like, good, what you got's enough, and maybe now. Okay. We talked a little bit more about the burnout and like trying to engage, whatever. Trying is exhausting. Like, I don't think that's an English mistake that trying can be trying. If any of you work in healthcare, patients are a patient experience, right? Somebody had a sense of humor. It's all I'm saying. So if trying to have this conversation is already too much, what would happen if today, or those of you watching the recording, today, you're recording, today you decide you're going to try to have this conversation. Now, this is not going to end with you like stepping outside and calling the person, right? Because some of you never go and do that. Okay, fine. But you'd at least hopefully shift how you're role-playing having this conversation. Get it out of drafts. Because you're holding on to this conversation. You're not doing it. And that is a form of communication with that person. So they're like, I don't know what the hell's wrong with her, but every time she comes, she's like bringing an invisible backpack of like drama with her. I can smell it. It's like a fart, but like she didn't eat anything, so I don't know what's going on, right? Like that's conversation that you're responsible for. So just have the conversation. That's it. So how are we going to do this? Okay, was that enough story time? Did everybody pick their person? Great. Step 1. You're going to decide to make a better connection. Notice, this is not about a conversation. This is just, you're just decided. This is not COVID specific, but I just want you to think about, you made a joke about the first time you deposited a check on the phone, and everyone was like, oh my God, I totally, because then, do you remember, like, do I really throw this away? I'm going to wait for my statement to show up and make sure that it's there. And then you cleaned off your desk and you're like, shit, I recycled that. I hope it shows up. And then you forget about it, right? But like, at least that was me. That's my bookkeeping system. So I want to encourage you that people need connection. They needed it before COVID. They need it now. I am not a touchy person. My favorite part of COVID is that no one had to hug me and I did not have to hug anyone. My least favorite part is that I sheltered in place with my husband in 1,200 square feet with 3 80-pound dogs when I used to travel 300 days a year. And evidently, there's no room service in quarantine. What? It takes a lot of food to keep in this shape. Where is room service? It's my biggest regret. Okay. Connection. This has now happened 3 times today, but people have asked to shake my hand. Those are the first 3 hands I have shook in 17 months. I didn't know I missed it until it was like all tingly. This is great, that's great, right? And I didn't have to do stuff and wash my hands and do all that. I just got to shake a hand and have a conversation. Right? Like, I've been reeling on that for hours now. I remember it was you. Anyway, so you were the first one. It's very exciting. It's okay. You also paid for the Uber. Good. Okay. So, see? Even Stevens. Right. This morning we met at Starbucks and she's like, she goes like, are you vaccinated? Yes, I am. Give me a hug. I'm going to hug you. There wasn't a lot of like multiple choice options. It was like 7 a.m. and I'm just like, ugh. Right? You know that hug where you're like, no arms. Hope it was good for you. That got me through college. Anyway. Better connections is your goal. Notice there is not even a W for win inside of better connections. You're going to decide that the outcome of this thing is a better connection. Now, side note, you picked your person. You're already intimidated, and where is the first step? Okay, so you're not going to start with that person. But you're going to like take notes and be thinking about that person, and then most of you will completely forget I exist in about half an hour, which is totally fine, because that's how our memories work. But what I want you to think is the next time you go through a drive-through, this is the best place to practice this, because you are not entitled a conversation partner here. So if it is the person, and you're going to start, like here's my work, first off, showing up to an awkward conversation with a handout, not a good look. Just skip that all altogether. You need to practice your posture. This is not a guaranteed conversation situation where that person is going to play along. Okay, you are probably in your car, going through, navigating the little cement things, and you get to a little squawky box, and the squawky box says, and you're like, venti, soy chai, no water, no foam. That is basically a transactional conversation. That is how we often communicate. So as weird as it may seem, this is literally how most of your conversations work anyway, because you don't actually care what they've said. You're just filling times until the elevator door opens up. So I challenge you, squawky box, first thing you're going to do as you're rolling down your window is you're going to decide, I am going to try to increase the amount of connection in the universe with the voice on the other side of the squawky box. You know you're going to come around the building, and that voice is not going to match that person's voice, right? You don't even get to see the ether voice from the squawky box. You are not entitled a conversation partner. This is your work. We've been talking about self-learning all day, and you're like, oh, I should get an MBA. I signed up for a one-year MBA class in the middle of COVID, and I'm still sober. No applause to that. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. I had to cook and study with the internet. What? Okay. You're going to decide you're going to increase the connection. Squawky Box has no idea you're doing this because this is about you. The first step, what if at the end of this, there is a better connection between me and somebody on the planet? That's your goal. Not winning. Not embarrassing Brian Baxter back. Good? Next step, you're going to decide how are you going to do this. And this is when you pick a particular conversation methodology. Is it an email? Is it a text? Is it on social media? Is it a squawky box? Is it in person? If the person's no longer alive, I have much more helpful conversations with my parents now that they're both dead than when they were available because I had to like schedule an appointment with them. According to my therapist, I was raised by an HR department. They're much more available now. There's no correlation between that and the no hugs, by the way. That's a sinker inner one. Okay. So you're going to decide this conversation is how I'm going to do the better connection part. You're going to decide I'm going to have an intentional conversation. That's the tool, but that's step 2. Step 1 is that you're trying to increase connection, not win. Clear? So after you decide you're going to have a conversation, if you are an external communicator like me, bless you, what often happens is you've done 2 steps, so now you're totally prepared to win this conversation, and you don't listen to the rest of the flow chart, so I'm just going to invite you, you haven't spoken yet, okay? 0 words have transpired out of your face or your thumbs. Better connection, intentional conversation. The next step is you're going to listen to them as if they are wise. Now, I just met CK today, so I'm going on a limb, but I think we have this in common. and that is that we are part dolphin. What I mean by this is that I am an external communicator that uses words and casual conversation like sonar to find out what's going on in the room. But that doesn't feel like talking to me, right? That's me just in all this entering a space. If that's how you listen, you've got whiskers, sonar, there's lots of ways to listen. Some people listen by shutting their face. I just saved you a marriage therapy copay on that one. If you can listen to them as if they know something, which just, if you break that down, like, of course they know something, but that's not how we listen, right? We don't listen as if they're an expert in anything, let alone to teach us something. But just for funsies, you're going to do that at this point. You're going to listen to them. You're going to check out their body posture. If it's an email or something, like, how is communication from them? Now, I always get asked this question, what if you're wrong? Like, if you're listening to them and you're interpreting these things, what if you're wrong? I'm never wrong about the judgments and assumptions I make about human beings, right? You aren't either. Nailed it, never been surprised, never been shocked by any judgment or assumption. This is a foreign concept. Why would you suddenly care now if you are accurate or not in the judgments and assumptions that you make, that you're interpreting from the person that you're trying to increase connection? Like, just relax. You're going to screw it up, but you're going to do it anyway.